This week, we're finishing Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, otherwise known as the birth canal.
Hi, readers. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Katie.
And welcome to Not Another Heroine, the book pod where we celebrate the heroines we love
and roast the ones we don't. We'll find you the best 5-star reads, the spiciest romance, and save you from the overhyped DNFs.
If it's romance, we'll read it.
Or watch it.
We like every flavor. So grab your favorite drink and get cozy. Welcome to Season 4. This last third of the movie, right, is where the creature comes alive, and you see kind of the abuse that Victor puts him through after Victor experiences the frustration of raising a creature that isn't as developed as he is, right? You have to grow and shape and teach and have phenomenal amounts of patience when dealing with other living things. And Victor does not, and he eventually kind of sees himself turn into his own father as he's interacting with the creature. In contrast to Elizabeth, who goes down carrying the candelabra late at night in her nightgown, and she stumbles on this creature and is like, "Sweetie, here's a leaf, let's play together."
Yeah. I love that her initial response to it was a little bit of frightened, scaredness. But then she immediately is, oh, it's just a creature. And isn't this an amazing out of this world experience? And we're communicating and like, my name is Elizabeth. And he repeats it back, but only when she's not listening. I feel like there's a lot of parallels to like motherhood in that, where it's, you have to be patient and you're like teaching this child, to experience and interact with the world. And you don't know, but they are listening and understanding and like learning from you. And especially with the interactions between Victor and the monster, where he knew what Victor would do and what Victor wanted, but he didn't have a way to communicate it just yet. But it is interesting because like Victor's behavior immediately following the monster's like birth is so similar to like postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety and like all of those hormones that you're like pumped full of. And he even said, I haven't slept, I haven't showered, I'm like disgusting. And like, you cut your hand. That could be out of anybody's like postpartum experience where it's like, okay, I'm on day 3 and I have not cleaned myself. I don't even know if I have brushed my teeth. It was a little bit kind of scary roast to watch. I have been in those trenches, man. But then especially to see it kind of take the horror perspective where it like, goes too far. And it's like, ooh.
It makes you wonder what would have happened had Victor had his own child. Let's say he lived happily ever after with Elizabeth and they had a kid. Would he be like this?
Like, whoa.
I think there's a bit of self-hatred in Victor's behavior because he was seeking to create perfection, better life than what is naturally created. And he failed. And that's what frustrates him is that, the creature isn't learning. Like he's not progressing. He doesn't see any of this. And I wonder if his behavior towards the creature is him reflecting on himself and his own failures.
I could see that. Well, especially, that it echoes so much his like own experience with his father. It'd be impossible for him to not have that self-reflective moment of like, I am falling into the same archetype set by my father. It kind of comes to a head when he's like, I have had enough. And then he, plans to light the whole tower on fire. And then, he has all the oil cans set up and the creature is kind of freaking out. And he's like, Victor, what is going on? And, the fire starts and it settles and he's like running out the door. And then he has a moment of, what the fuck am I doing? I am about to light my creation on fire. I don't want to be my father and be this abusive character. But then it's too late. And then the tower explodes and his leg gets all fucked up.
And then meanwhile, Elizabeth, who is on the way home with her fiance, has a premonition that something bad is going to happen.
I know you don't like this, but that is for real. Like, it's like the mother, like, brain tingle where you're like, your mind connects all of the weird, pieces of information and then you synthesize it. You're like, it's too quiet. Like nobody else would think anything, but like it's too quiet. Like my kid is up to something, and then there's poop all over the walls.
So I'm not arguing that it does happen in real life. There is an excellent book called The Gift of Fear, which is all about like listening to your intuition and to these like your mind is observing, even if you're not conscious of it, all of those indicators that something bad is going to happen. It was just Elizabeth's like we just don't get enough of her, and so for her to be like, yes, I have this like vision of Victor murdering the creature. And so they turn the carriage around, they go back, they find Victor in his ruined leg, they save him, and then assume that the creature is dead. And this is the point in the story where you flash back to the Arctic expedition, and the creature has made his way to the captain's cabin. And so they're all having this like little story time session. And creature's like, now let me tell you my side of the story. And this is where his narration takes over, which is such a cool way to structure the story. And then we follow the creature as he escapes the tower through the birth canal. And you know what? I did not need to see him meeting a deer in the woods for the first time, chopping on some berries, and then some hunters blow the deer's brains out right in front of the creature. Creature's like, "Oh, humanity sucks. What world am I living in?" He eventually makes his way to this cottage in the woods, farmland. They're shepherds. It's an extended family living together. They're going through some hard times. He hides out in their granary, and no one figures out he's there for months, but he becomes the spirit of the woods, and he helps take care of this family by finding them firewood and taking care of things and building fences. We're going to kind of speed through this second half because it's just a lot of like the creature becoming more human. But there is a blind grandfather in this family who seems to know that there is something not right in the household. So the rest of the family goes off for some hunting, leaving the grandfather behind. The blind grandfather alone.
Yeah.
That tracks. And then he's like, "It's okay, buddy. Come out of the shadows." And then we get, 10 minutes of the creature learning to read classic works in the span of months. If I have some other complaints, it's the inconsistencies with what is the creature and what is his like developmental like state progress, because he can speak Victor, which is not a very easy word for like a newborn to pronounce. And then you have these moments where call outs where he's like, "Oh, I have memories of multiple men," because he's a creature made of multiple bodies. Yeah. Which doesn't track because they used one head to yes, I remember the memories of this one toe. It's just kind of weird.
My arm has been up to some naughty things.
I mean, think about what your memories of some other parts would have. And like, I'm sorry, I couldn't help but think, do you think Victor gave him some parts too? Or like,
I don't like that. I don't want to know. That will remain a mystery of creation.
Because, as Victor is becoming more educated and more aware of the world, he has this desire for companionship because he doesn't have anyone like him. And so after reading, he's like, yes, I also want a person like me to spend my life with. Maybe he has memories that kind of set the stage for that, but I don't get how he learned so quickly if he was supposed to be like a newborn when Victor created him.
Yeah, I feel like it is kind of a confusing timeline, especially if you wanted to make the argument that when the creature is interacting with the grandfather and the grandfather is reading to him, that it like mirrors that toddler age where their brains are just sponges and they go exponentially towards full sentences. But that's over multiple years. And this is 3 months of winter. So I don't know. Not a very strong argument. I could see the argument. I can see the claims, the points. I am not buying it though.
Tragedy strikes again for the poor creature. I want to call the creature Victor because he says Victor so often. It's kind of a natural tendency. But the family, wolves attack the grandfather. Victor comes home to see that. It's not pretty. And then he eventually has to leave because the family discovers him and like, "Oh, you monster, please, despite you taking care of our family over the winter and our blind grandfather, we hate you." Which is weird because he doesn't look like a monster. He looks like a war victim.
Oh, because that's what the grandpa thought of at first. He's like, "Whoa, you're like fucked up, man."
Yeah. So if anyone had stumbled upon him, like, yeah, he's clearly a man who's been through some shit. He's got scars on his face, but that's the only thing that is really visible.
I don't know. If I saw the creature stumbling towards me in the middle of the night and my father was torn to bits by wolves, I'd be like, I'm maybe going to shoot first, think about this later, and then be like, oh, maybe he's a war victim. But like the most fucked up looking guy I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah. Doesn't stop Elizabeth, though.
Nope. But also relatable. We have all read our fair share of monster romance.
At this point, the creature makes his way to Victor's estate. He somehow tracks him down. By the time this happens, it is wedding time between Elizabeth and the brother. And all that the creature wants is to find Victor, confront him, and say, "Hey, make me a friend." That's all he wants. So he confronts Victor as Victor is getting ready for the wedding. And Victor's like, "We clearly saw how well you turned out. So no, I am not doing this again." And this proceeds into like a fisticuffs. A huge commotion. Elizabeth runs into the room, sees them fighting, and then runs towards the creature to be like, oh, I missed you so much. The one time that we actually saw each other, because they only interacted with each other one single time. It's okay. It's fine. I'm okay with it. And then because Victor is a smart scientific man, he decides to point a gun at the two of them combined, thinking he's going to hit the creature, and instead shoots Elizabeth in the stomach. Cool. Now we have the Bride of Frankenstein scene.
Thinking about it several weeks/months after seeing this, I love the parallelism that Victor, kind of glorified his mother. So you have that kind of like blueprint. And then the same character, Mia Goth, comes through as a love interest and it doesn't work out for XYZ reasons. And then the creature has this sort of like opedious opus with Mia Goth again in a mother role. And then, at the end of his story arc, he's having this missed lovers almost bride moment with Mia Goth again. So it's like Victor and his creature both had parallel adventures. Funny enough, with the same actress playing two different characters. But it was interesting. They both are, forced to step into the same steps that the previous generation did. Fascinating. Loved it.
It's a brilliant move on the production part to do all of that. The creature scoops Elizabeth's body up, carries her bridal style out of the estate, brings her to a cave for some reason. Victor tracks them down. And this is kind of like where it starts to kind of trickle off into craziness. This kicks off the grand hunt for the last 15 minutes of the movie or 10 minutes of the movie, where Elizabeth dies, creature's mad, Victor's mad, they resolve to kill each other and they chase each other around the world, hunting each other. And so now we're back to square one where we see the opening scene again, but we see it from Victor's perspective where he is being hunted by the creature. This was interesting, the final confrontation between Victor and the creature, which is the creature gives him a chance to kill him. So Victor has dynamite and gives it to the creature. And the creature's like, dear God, I hope this works. I hope I die. That's all the creature wants at this point. And it doesn't work. And so he's extra mad. Victor is saved by the naval ship crew. And now we get the conclusion of the story.
I loved the fact that the creature tried multiple times to kill him, end his life, but just wasn't able to. And he was forced to continue living even though he didn't want to. And then your tidbits about AI are so interesting because the creature has reached into self-awareness and, what happens when they want to enact, their desires or their wants, but they're able to just based on the creation itself. And then paralleling that with the expedition into the Arctic, no one had ever done it. So the captain of the ship, he sees this whole thing. He listens the story from both perspectives. And he's like, you know what? That is a mystery that I will not be the one to solve. I am going to choose to not, subscribe to this craziness. I'm going to turn around and we're going to go home. There's the potential of AI is just this crazy, mind fuck, whatever, Victor and the creature. But we could just be like, you know what? Think so. We don't know that we should, as a society, move towards that nonsense. We're going to pack our stuff up and go home to 2016.
Well, there's a question, I think, that maybe the grandfather in the little village poses, which is, where does the soul reside? Maybe it's not the grandfather. One of the characters asks, where does the soul reside? And what is the meaning? And how do you define life? Which is fascinating when you're talking about the AI layer, which is, okay, well, this is all artificial up until what point? If we grant things the functions of biological life, where do you find the soul if the soul is real? What makes a creature, independent of itself rather than its creator?
Dude. That's very esoteric, beyond my brain's capacity to tangle with.
One of the main themes I enjoyed about this movie is how obsession corrupts intent, because Victor is driven by his mother's death. And all he wants to do is create life, which by itself is a noble intent. He is essentially a good person at the start of it. He's just driven by obsession, and his obsession eventually takes over, and it drives him to do all of these evil things in the name of creating life, which is kind of a means to an end argument too, kind of overlaid with all of the like painting parallels that you've kind of identified through here. There's so much going on.
Yeah. Even like the color, we didn't even touch on it, and I will leave that as a mystery for the readers. But the use of the color red in the scenes and the actions they're undertaking, and as you watch, as that kind of manifests through the story, especially with the start, where the first scene where we see like the mother and Victor, she has this beautiful like red dress that's like floating in the wind. And then there's all these little tidbits throughout, and the gloves coming off. Oh man, dude, crazy.
I think this is a good mental kind of reset if you're drowning in the same themes and tropes and stories of romantasy, and you need something that is similar but has a little bit more depth to it. Like
Mm.
this movie will make you think, and I think that is something that we're missing in some of the more book talk flavored storylines where it's like, oh, girl meets boy, they ride dragons, and let's insert tragedy to make everyone suffer for no reason whatsoever. This movie
Mhm.
is tragedy with a purpose.
I feel like it's similar to Alchemized too. I keep thinking about Senlinyu's interview that we, got to watch, and she's like, romance or is just romance taken too far. I feel like just little tidbits into like the Frankenstein, into the Alchemized. It just kind of takes the plots and tropes and, storylines and where we think it's going to go, and then takes it in and, what if we took it a little bit too far? And you're like, whoa, okay, like let's tone it
Mhm.
back. I feel like it makes me appreciate some of the sillier, like dark romances or like, the red flags where it's like, well, this would be kind of an interesting, romantasy book if this whole, red flag alpha hole character whatever is taken like a little bit too far, and then it's like, is it still romance or is this come kind of like stalker craziness? It makes like a
That
very
book is
interesting.
called Death's Obsession, if you want to read that.
We all go through it.
Well, this is Frankenstein. It's still on Netflix. Guillermo del Toro, amazing cast. Ultimately, we both highly recommend. Please watch it.
From
From
our Netflix shelf, we have not established like a
we
good.
don't know how to do the shows. We still can't do the
Nope.
shows after 3-4 years.
We'll get there eventually. From
We'll
our
s-
shelf to yours.
we'll see you on the next page.
Hi, readers. Like what you've been hearing? Like and subscribe to us on YouTube or Patreon at Not Another Heroine to support our growing library and get access to exclusive bonus content.
Ready for the next page? We post new episodes every Monday and Wednesday wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.